Hi, my name is Dorothy Drew. I'm currently a hypnotist. I specialize in helping people with physical issues, and I would like to encourage all of my clients, but especially the ones with cancer, to read this book, Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard. And this is sort of a review about why this book is so special and why it's well worth reading. So it's an amazing book. It's part autobiography, it's part family history, but in large part, it's a scientific treatise. It's written for non-specialists on a completely new scientific paradigm. A paradigm is simply a basic foundation theory about plant communication, about community, about how diverse species are part of cooperation and nurturing and supporting each other, which is a huge paradigm shift of, Darwinian survival of the fittest and competition. So as a biology student, I had courses in the history of science. So I've read the story of Rachel Carson. I've read and the rebuttal against her. I've read the story of Darwin. I've read The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn. In reading this book, Finding the Mother Tree, I am in awe. This book is a fascinating autobiography. Suzanne Simard grew up in a French-Canadian family in northern British Columbia in Canada. As a young woman, she worked for the lumber companies. She later trained as a research scientist. She worked with the Canadian federal government in forestry at a time when there were very few women scientists. She later became a university professor in forest ecology. Her father and her male relatives were logging the forest of selective trees, manually cutting down trees. She lived the changes in forestry as commercial companies took over and they changed to clear cutting, which is removing all of the trees in the area. Forestry was based on the idea that only commercially valuable trees are worth replanting in the clear-cut areas. And even more, anything else, any other plant was considered a weed. It took away sunlight, it took away nutrients, it took away water that was needed by the planted seedlings. So the idea was you take away all those other plants and the seedlings will thrive. So they would clear cut, they'd destroy everything with chemicals and then plant new seedlings. But what happened is that most of the planted seedlings died. So as a scientific treatise exploring what was going on, Finding the Mother Tree, it's an amazing story. Simard's account of her observations and how she developed scientifically valid research that's proven that plants communicate with each other through their roots, that they have a network of communication that's comparable when it's mapped out to what's going on in our brain, the neurons in our brain, the connections in our brains, the connections to our body, connecting through beneficial microbes or soil fungi to other plants, that the combination of different species, they weren't competing with each other, but they protected each other, they nurtured each other, they cooperated. So one major combination of plants that she studied was birch and fir trees. And birch trees, which are deciduous, were and are considered garbage trees by the forest industry that believe that these trees should be destroyed, and the fir trees that are the commercially wanted trees. So, but she found that in the summer, the birch trees with their leaves and their higher, usually, they grew faster, so they're higher at an earlier level. The birch trees shared water. They shared nutrients with the fir trees. They protected the fir trees from being burnt by the sun. They protected the fir trees, the tiny little seedlings from drought. In the spring, before the birch trees had their leaves open, or in the fall when the leaves were dormant, it was the other way around. The fir trees shared nutrients. The fir trees shared water, and by being together, they thrived. By being together, they helped protect each other from pathogenic microbes. They protected each other from disease. So rather than competition, it was synergy. It was a mutual thriving. Each species, separate from the other, did not thrive. And that in itself opened up a new area of science research, that even tomato plants can communicate with other plants in a garden. It's mind-blowing. In addition, Simard proved that large established trees protected seedlings. So it's not that the seedlings were competing, that they were being nurtured. And even more, the large trees, which she identified as the mother trees, could identify seedlings that were the same genetics from seedlings of the same species, but a different genetics. So Simard developed the concept of the mother tree, a tree that supported, protected, nurtured, and communicated with the community, even to the extent that when dying, the mother tree would actively send a surge of nutrients out to the seedlings. So the idea developed is so far from the Darwinian idea of competition and survival of the fittest. It's a new paradigm, a new model. Simard presents the proof that survival is by cooperation. So her book is worth reading just for the story of the development of these ideas and the proof that she developed for this new way of thinking. For my clients, her story of her own breast cancer journey is inspirational. If you're too ill to read this entire book, and Simard is in many TED Talk videos and documentaries have been about her scientific work, I don't think there's videos about her breast cancer journey. Ask someone to read you the chapter on birthdays, or at least summarize it for you. And these are a few sentences I wanted to share that I really want my clients to really be aware of. So she's talking about her cancer journey, about the diagnosis, and having to, consider chemo and all the other treatment. So she talked about being at a workshop on surviving cancer. Experts walked us through ways to improve our chances by exercising, by eating well, by sleeping well, and reducing stress, which of course is all described by Callie Turner in Radical Remissions, which I also encourage my cancer clients to read. But the most important thing was to ensure that our relationships were strong, to keep communicating how we felt. We are defined by our relationships. The single characteristic of people who survive cancer, they never give up hope. Just skip a bit. She talks about needing to be able to present her own ideas to stand up for herself. And then she continues, but isn't this what my trees were showing me too? Health depends on the ability to connect and communicate. This cancer diagnosis was telling me I needed to slow down, grow a backbone, speak about what I had learned from the trees. And then she talks wonderfully about how important it is to communicate with nature, to communicate with trees. So she talks about skiing. She's cross-country skiing. And I thanked the trees along the boundary for helping the saplings along, this mother tree idea. And this is what she said to them: I need your help. I need to be healed. So she's at the top of the trail. I glided along, their branches over me, some touching my arm. just how the trees were inspirational to her, which is really, really amazing. And then she's having, with the treatment, of course, there's lots of pain. Her hair fell out. It's horrible experiences, the chemo side effects. And then her friend said, let's go to the forest. So we walked in the falling snow among the cedars, the young ones layered in circles around the old ones. Of course, I whispered as we slipped past the saplings, thinking that seedlings could be intermediate nodes between distant mother trees and would eventually become mothers themselves. This unbroken line between the old and the young, the link between generations, as with all living things, is the legacy of the forest, the root of our survival. And then a friend had texted her, think of what you want to be, not of what you don't want to be. And it's inspirational to read this, and it's worth reading if you have cancer. And our modern societies have made the assumption that trees don't have the same capacities as humans. They don't have nurturing instincts. They don't cure one another. They don't administer care. But now we know the mother trees can truly nurture their offspring. Douglas firs, it turns out, recognize their kin, distinguish them from other families and from different species. The trees, they communicate, they send carbon, the building block of life, not just to the mycorrhizas, the soil fungi of their kin, but to other members of their community to help keep it whole. They appear to relate to their offspring, as do mothers, passing their best recipes to their daughters, conveying their life energy, their wisdom to carry life forward. The yews, too, were in this web. Some of the medicine used for cancer treatment comes from the yew tree. In relationship with their lifelong companions and with people like me recovering from illness or just walking through their groves. Very, very powerful observations of nature, how it relates to health and the role of emotions, the power of plants, the power of trees. The Japanese developed the idea of forest bathing, of absorbing the power from the trees. Their roots go deep into the ground, the branches reach up to the heavens. So I encourage all of my cancer clients to read Radical Remissions by Kelly Turner. And one story that she relates in this book is of a scientist, Shin Terayama, and he started meditating outside at sunrise after his cancer treatment. He observed that the birds started singing 42 minutes before sunrise. Now that's very, very specific. 42 minutes. And then he wanted, as a scientist, wondered, why? Why is this happening? And no one seems to have made this observation before. It's known that birds sing at the sunrise, but 42 minutes? And it was later shown that at that time, the trees change the way they breathe out oxygen, breathe in carbon dioxide. And at 42 minutes before sunrise, at least in the summertime, and this stayed static even as the time of sunrise changes, the trees produced a surge of oxygen. And the birds would absorb more of this special oxygen by singing. So with Simard's work, and that, I mean, the trees nurture our whole environment. They nurture us. It's indirectly related, but Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's a neuroscientist, he documents how morning sunlight can reset the chemicals in your brain and in your body. So we need outdoor sunlight, especially early in the morning for health. The link for his videos below. So ideally, if you can, walk in a forest every day, or at least a park. And if you've read the classic book, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, even an isolated tree surrounded by concrete can listen, and a person can clarify their feelings, their hopes, their dreams. And I work with clients with chronic pain, both emotional and physical, in part by helping them gain an awareness of their thoughts and their emotions to bring balance and peace to their life. So Suzanne Simard's book, Finding the Mother Tree, is another one that I'll encourage all of my clients to read. So if you read this book, let me know your thoughts. If you'd like a consultation call about my work, which is free, my Calendly scheduling link is below. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you'll get this book and read it. So thank you.